Regulation in the U.S. is a thorny subject. In fact, that's putting it mildly. Many crypto companies are pushing back, but one in particular, known as Prometheus, is taking a different approach and seemingly trying to stand out by saying that the SEC has in fact done enough, even if they haven't themselves yet secured permission to operate, and once they can operate, seem to have no significant tokens that they could actually enable for trade. Jen, why don't you start us off with this interesting story?
This is just like a web that I can't wait to see what part gets untangled next. I think the Prometheus story is really interesting. Aaron Kaplan has been very public on his stance on the crypto industry. You know, he says that if you just treat everything as a security, you won't have any issue with the SEC. He's been on First Mover twice saying exactly this. And the last hearing that he was at, you know, he confirmed that Bitcoin and Ether won't be listed on Prometheus when they are finally available to the public, and that is the majority of the crypto industry. So there's a lot to untangle here. You know, of course, there's the conspiracy theorists that feel like Kaplan, is out there projecting a certain narrative. But I think it's also important to hear the other side of the story. And I want to point to this tweet from Preston Byrne, lawyer at Brown Rudnick. He said a few weeks back, Aaron has been working on Prometheus since at least 2015, comes from a family of lawyers that has a law firm in Manhattan named for them and has a view on tokens consistent with that background. There's nothing fishy here. It's just nobody noticed him until this week. A lot of responses to this tweet talked about, you know, meeting Aaron at conferences years back, and he's been working on Prometheus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that the discussion around Prometheus, though, really gets us anywhere with regulation when we look at some of the tokens that have been in some of the previous filings. You know, they're not tokens that are widely traded or even widely known. And it doesn't get us to a place where we actually understand what securities are. You know, some of the tokens that are mentioned in the previous filings, the projects themselves have come out and said, these are not securities. So not only does it feel like Prometheus and Aaron Kaplan are defending themselves against the rest of the industry, but it seems like maybe some of the token projects they hope to deem as securities as they move forward with the SEC, they'll be up against the projects that are actually issuing those tokens. So like I said, a big web, and I can't wait to see which part gets untangled next. Will, what do you think?
I think this guy is playing everyone like a fiddle. That's what I think. He went against the grain, and now everyone has a splinter in their finger and is a little upset about it, but we're talking about them, right? So go back to Preston Byrne's tweet here. He said he's known about Prometheus for years. He's known about Aaron for years. Nobody else in crypto really did, though. But now we do know about them, and we had them on First Mover twice. They've been on Unchained podcast. They went to Congress and talked in front of everybody, getting so many different follow-up interviews. And that's going to bear fruit, even if people don't like what they're doing right now. So I think this is a very smart media strategy, and I think they're going to continue to push it. They might not even agree with what they're saying with the SEC stuff, right? Like maybe that is something we can take them as face value and say, like, that's what he thinks is the rule of law, and they think it's being fairly applied. But my meta take on this is a firm that is trying to build market fit in a very crowded room. And the best way to do that is to say something that's, you know, uncomfortable to a lot of people. And look how much attention they're going to get. We see the same tactic time and time again with a lot of people in crypto. And a lot of those people in crypto, not a lot of people like, because they're saying things that are uncomfortable and a lot of people don't think they're genuine. But those people often get market fit because they get attention for the first time. So that is my meta take on this whole story. Adam?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting take on it, and I think that it's a plausible take on it. But to me, the explanation here could be a lot more simple. And I think that the telling part about it is that once they actually get approval to operate, they won't be able to list Bitcoin or Ethereum. And this kind of illustrates the whole problem with the SEC's approach, which is that the SEC regulates securities. So if they are regulating an exchange, then that exchange is trading securities. And a security can be a registered security, it can be an unregistered security, but they are fundamentally securities. And the conceit that is acknowledged here, you know, by not being able to list Bitcoin and Ethereum is that not everything is a security. And by nature of not everything being a security, effectively you're separating the world into cryptocurrencies over here, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which these exchanges will not be able to trade because they're not securities. And then over here are tokens that look like securities, and they will be able to trade, but only with the constraints that are around securities, which include you can't transfer them in many circumstances if it's a Reg D exemption for a year. You can only own them or trade them or do anything with them if you're an accredited investor who has a net worth of over $1 million, not including your primary house or other kind of factors. So like that's the crazy part about it, is that this is actually an acknowledgement that what Coinbase and to a lesser extent Robinhood and other platforms are saying is correct, which is that, hey, even if we do everything that the SEC says that they want us to do, that actually would mean that we would become security exchanges and not crypto exchanges anymore. We would not be able to operate in our current core business, which seems like it's kind of a big problem for a regulator that says that everything fits within their rules. But Zach, what do you think?
Big bad Aaron Kaplan. Yeah, he's certainly everyone's favorite punching bag these days. A lot of spicy commentary around the Unchained podcast that Will mentioned with the general counsel from Paradigm. And, the lawyer on that show was basically arguing to Aaron Kaplan and Prometheum that, hey, great, you have a license, you don't have a business. And that, I think, is what a lot of people are commenting on. They're saying, well, you've sort of, sure, you got this special purpose broker-dealer license, but you've also entered into a catch-22 where your business ultimately may be harmed by the thing that you think is going to unlock this massive wave of investment. And I think that's a fair point. And I think that's something that people are really locking in on as Prometheum goes out there and says, hey, this is the compliant path for crypto trading in the United States. And people are saying, well, if you look into it, that's not great. You're basically saying that it can't function for the two largest assets in the market, which is a big problem. So, I would definitely check out that podcast. It's a spicy one. The general sort of tone, I think, from Kaplan and the Prometheum crew that the rest of the crypto world is a bunch of scofflaws, as the Paradigm Special Counsel put it, is rubbing people the wrong way and is fueling interest, attention, and drama around this story, as Will mentioned, whether that's going to serve them in the long run or not, and simply alienate them from the community of users and potential partners. I think that's probably the big question going forward for Prometheum once it can start to be functional. But hey, who knows?
I mean,
Will, I think you got the last